Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be your captain for this week's episode, and this is Union Federation episode 236. And we are discussing Star Trek Q episodes, and we got a good one today. This is All Good Things from Star Trek The Next Generation in 1994. And we are discussing these Q episodes because of the Fan Collective. We'll get into more of that in a moment. But this is Union Federation here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN. Make sure you check us both out. We appreciate your support. And also, if you're watching the YouTube there, please go ahead and hit our QR code. That'll take you to our website with all of our awesome programming on the Fandom Podcast Network. And also, too, if you are watching us live on YouTube, please feel free to shoot a comment in there and help us along with the discussion. If you're listening to this podcast, thank you very much for subscribing. Please share us out. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network. We very much appreciate it. Well, it can't go any further until we get the rest of my awesome crew here. First of all, let's go ahead and bring to the table here my brother from another mother, my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. Please welcome Mr. Kyle Wagner.
The game is 5 mic podcast. All the hosts are wild, and the loser has to clean the pee corner.
Kyle is taking a break from that this week. So, yeah, he's going to delegate some of that. Well, with us, as always, as well, is the founder of the BQN Network. Please welcome our counselor. Please welcome Miss Amy Nelson. How are you?
Where's your mommy? I can't hear you.
I see what you did there. That's good.
Mhm.
Welcome, Amy. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Now, with us is been with us through all these Q episodes thus far, a very special guest ambassador. Please welcome Mr. Gary Akers. What's going on, Gary?
Hi, everybody. I've got to say that originally I was considering doing this show tonight in my pajamas as an homage to the first time we see Picard in this episode, but I decided that might be a little bit too much. So,
Oh, come on now, Gary.
Wait,
Show
wait,
us
wait.
that little woohoo.
Gary, I thought you were going to wear your Troy pajamas. That was what you said you were going to wear.
We got,
that'll be on the. I'll leave that for the final Q night.
we've got Joel in the chat. Hello,
Hey,
Joel. Welcome
Joel.
back. Welcome back. We appreciate you visiting again. Please feel free to comment along because this is going to be a good one. I want to remind you what's happening here on the Fandom Podcast Network, specifically recent episodes of the Union Federation. Of course, speaking of Next Generation, we did every 2-part episode limited podcast series of Star Trek The Next Generation. We also did a 10-episode limited series on all of the main crew profiles of the Orville, as we also love and talk about the Orville here on the Union Federation podcast. And we also did an episode where there was a lot of Star Trek alumni guest stars in front and behind the camera. We also gave our thoughts on Section 31, the movie. We also said goodbye to Star Trek Lower Decks from season 5. And we also recently discussed Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 3. But we are discussing the Fan Collective. And this was a set that came out in 2006 where we talked about all of had showcased all the Star Trek episodes on DVD. And as you can see, we are winding down. We have done several. We're over halfway done here, and we got a few more coming because we're going to have a little 3-episode arc of Voyager where Q made an appearance there. I want to give a shout out to my good friend Joe Caroni. I've got a cool little poster of him doing his Q art there. Check him out, joecaroni.com, for his other Star Trek art and a lot of Star Wars art as well. Big fan and good guy as well. So check out joecaroni.com. But this is the Fan Collective that we're discussing here, guys. And I'm going to showcase my DVD copy right here. And we're talking about all the episodes that are on the back of this, are listed on the back of this, but in this collection. And that includes, of course, all of the Q episodes from 1987, from TNG all the way through DS9, the 1 episode there, and of course the 3 that we mentioned in Voyager. And we got more of those coming up later. And also, guys, check this out. I found this. I was going through some cards because we're going to talk about cards later, because I used to work for Decipher that made the Star Trek customizable card game. And I found my Mortal Q card that I got signed by John de Lancie. This is when he was human for Deja Q.
Yeah.
And what's funny is they give characters like stats at the bottom, and he has physics times 10, geology times 10, leadership -1, and discard the Q dilemma if you encounter it. and his cunning just says Q.
That's funny.
So I had to share that with you guys there. All right, let's go ahead and get into the regular part of the show. Did remind you, though, please check out the first episode that we did of this Q series. That was, of course, Encounter at Farpoint. Reason being is that we went into the history of the Q. We gave you a little background on the Q history and other Qs as well. And also we called the Q hotline, which was a lot of fun. And of course, we are discussing all the Q episodes from Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. But John de Lancie, as a reminder, since we're at the tail end of, or this is the end of the Next Generation appearance, he also made an appearance in Lower Decks. He made 9 appearances in Star Trek Picard, which we're going to talk about later, and 1 in Strange New Worlds. But I think it's time to get to the main part of the show with the first away mission. All right, first thing we got going up here is Star Trek Next Generation. We are at the end of the TNG run. Kind of makes me a little sad. There might be some feels later, just saying. This is episode 236 of Union Federation, discussing all good things. And we have the Admiral's Log episode synopsis of this episode. And as always, Amy, if you could read that to us and any other information regarding when it aired and rating and all that kind of stuff, let's get going.
All righty. Well, this is season 7, episode 25. It aired May 23rd, 1994. It does run for an hour and 45 minutes. So this was a 2-hour thing with commercials, if you remember back then. And the IMDb rating, a 9.1, which if you know anything about IMDb ratings, that is very high.
That's a good one. Yes.
Yes. So, so here we go. A bewildered Captain Jean-Luc Picard finds himself moving uncontrollably back and forth through time. 1 minute he's aboard the Enterprise, the next he's 25 years in the future, working on his vineyard in France. Then suddenly he finds himself 7 years in the past, being escorted aboard the Enterprise for the first time. While his crew suspects Picard of suffering from a debilitating mental disease, Picard struggles to convince them to investigate a temporal anomaly in the neutral zone that he believes is related to the problem. Picard soon discovers that Q is responsible for his erratic time travels. Caught in a paradox that Q has devised, Picard realizes he must risk his life and the lives of his crew to save humanity.
There you go. Gosh, it was really good to return to this. It kind of brings me to a certain happy place. It's a little bit of nostalgia as well. Some great performances, of course, that we'll get into here. I remember when I first saw this, I was having a little trouble like understanding the plot exactly. Did you guys ever had any issues following it the first time around?
It's been
The
so
very
long, I
first
really don't
time,
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, because you have there's 3 different time things, and Picard has to organize each different time frame with all of his people that he's working with to make sure that this thing happens here and all good things. So yeah.
Well, thankfully we do have the actors being dressed up very differently, like with season 1 uniform versus, and then the future badges, which is a callback to, previous. Anyways. So I think because the production staff did such a good job, I was always clear on which time frame we were in.
Gotcha.
But the growing backwards, that was pretty cool. The paradox.
Well, let's get into some Star Trek trivia. All right, Amy, I'm going to have you hit us with our first one here. I always like this one. Okay,
so Miles O'Brien reappears in TNG for the first time since moving to Deep Space Nine. Although he was in Encounter at Farpoint, he had a much smaller role and he wasn't even named. With half the bridge crew still on Farpoint Station, his role has been expanded here to fill the gap, no doubt. Yeah, see him on the bridge.
I thought this was a nice addition since we all know who he is.
Yes.
And it was nice to see him
Yeah.
have a little more scene to chew on and retroactively like brings him back. So when you're watching Encounter at Farpoint, like, hey, wait, he's around, So
Yeah.
I like it that they recognize one of the little people, to quote Q.
Oh,
Exactly. Kyle, why don't you go ahead and do number 2 for us here on trivia?
Okay, this episode won the 1995 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation, the first Star Trek The Next Generation episode to do so since The Inner Light, which came out in 1992. They are, in fact, the only 2 TNG episodes to have won this award. It was the winner of the 1995 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Writers Ronald D. Moore and Brandon Braga won the award for this episode, as well as the director Rick Colby. Other awards: won an Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Special Visual Effects and was nominated for Outstanding Drama Series. And I just have to say, I have now decided that the Hugo Award is the most lethal looking of all award show awards, because I think you can hurt somebody with that thing.
I love that it has that cool rocket design for the Hugo Award. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah, there's definitely a sci-fi mystery to be made where that's the weapon.
yeah. Amy, go ahead and do number 3 for us, please.
all righty. The footage of the 2364 Riker reporting is a shot taken from the Arsenal of Freedom. The man featured behind Riker is Paul Rice, played by Marco Rodriguez, or at least the holographic version from the aforementioned episode. Rice was digitally removed when the episode was remastered in 2014.
Now, I thought this was a very clever way for them to bring Riker into it without bringing him into it, because they were able to use this footage from that episode of season 1 of Arsenal of Freedom. Or maybe that was season 2.
No, season
No, it
one.
was season one.
Season 1, okay. And Marco Rodriguez, we've actually showcased him here recently on the Fandom Podcast Network, because we were showcasing our Couch Potato Theater, our Couch Potato Theater podcast covers our favorite movies, and we were discussing canon films from 1980, where they had a lot of action films, and one of them was Cobra with Sylvester Stallone, and Marco Rodriguez played the crazy cult killer in the beginning of that movie, and he was really good at it. And then I recently rewatched with my wife, because we loved the first series, and we watched the second series. Oh god, it's called? Chris Pine? No, not Chris Pine. God, it's the Terminalist. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The other Chris, the Guardians of the Galaxy Chris Pratt. He is really good in this series. One of his best acting roles, and Marco Rodriguez plays an old friend of his in the family and helps him in his journey. And he's just a really good actor. And it was nice to see him get a call out there. So yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the final bit of trivia here, because this is this is something ties to me here. So, Star Trek Future Enterprise is showcased in this episode. Well, I'm going to take you back to the second set that was released for the 1990s Star Trek customizable card game that I was a volunteer for before I got hired by the company. The second set was called Alternate Universe, and it was all of the characters throughout TNG that had an alternate universe storyline, or came from the future or past or time traveled. Well, the Future Enterprise not only was a powerful card in the game, it was also an ultra rare. It was very hard to find. If you had a box of 30 packs and you had 15 cards in each pack, you were lucky to get one of these and out of maybe a case, which had, I think, 12 or 6 boxes in it. I had a knack of finding these things. I don't know how it was, but this was one of the most, if you ask anyone in the card collecting world, is specifically like Star Wars and Star Trek, this was one of the most coveted cards, just because it was a really cool card. And then they re-released it later in a foil version of it. And then there's this kind of weird thing that a bunch of us did when we did find them. And then we found out, like, if we were like really hardcore collectors, we did this funny thing, and I'm going to showcase it here on the video. So whenever you had ultra rares and you either, were with someone that you played a lot of tournaments with, and instead of getting regular like turret support or any other way you bonded in the game, to be friends forever type of situation, instead of just shaking hands, what you did was you cut one in half and you signed one each and gave it to the other. And my friend Don gave this one to me and I signed the other half. That's an ultra rare card, which right now probably goes for over $100. And we cut it in half. So like, you know what they do in old movies where they'll rip a dollar in half and then you have to like put them together later for like a secret meeting or something like that. Well, we did that with these here. And I also showcased all of the Enterprises on this set right here. If you're looking at the video, these are all the Enterprise cards that came out for a certain time. And you'll notice right there is the Future Enterprise. That is a foil shiny version right there. So yeah, it was one of those things I had to have a ship of the line of all the Enterprises cards that had come out. More have come out after I did that thing though. But the Future Enterprise, huge collectible piece. Kyle, yes, what you got?
I just want to put out an apology to all of those people out there who are card collectors who just went through a horrific moment as they saw how badly Kevin cut up that ultra rare card.
Wait.
The panic attack that is kicking into them right now.
I'm sorry. How badly? I'm sorry.
No.
Did you
I
see
think
the
that
precision
cut
that
job is precise.
It is. Look
The
at
cut
that.
job
That's
is
not.
precise, but
cutting the
collector,
card, you're
forever.
right, Kyle.
What's also rare about this card too, if you're watching the video, is if you turn it around, it's actually a regular Star Trek card that accidentally was printed with a black front. So it's actually super rare too. Nerd alert. All right, guys, let's go ahead and hit our next away mission. Now, one of the things that we've started doing these Q episodes is, thanks to Amy, giving honor to the quotes of this episode. So our first mission report begins with Q quotes, as we call it, or other quotes from others in the episode, other cast members as well. And I just want to start off with the first one right here. This is one of my favorites. Where Captain Picard, if you're watching the video, he finally joins the poker game. And we're going to talk about more of that later. But he says, so 5-card stud, nothing wild, and sky's the limit. So I want to start with you first, Amy. Do you have any Q quotes that you're a fan of?
Yeah, and I want to know everyone's opinion because watching this episode, who was funnier? Data, season 1 old time Data, or Q? Because Data, I'm given 2 because my absolute favorite, and I say it to my students and their heads explode. What is the etymology of that idiom? I would love that. There's a lot of idioms coming around these days.
I can't even pronounce that sentence, Amy.
Hey, Amy, what are you saying? You're going to be burning the late night petroleum?
Yes. That would not be advisable.
I think all English teachers should actually have a T-shirt that just says, "What is the etymology of that idiom?"
Yes, I agree. Oh my gosh. So now to my Q one that I just absolutely love. And it's sort of a foreshadowing of what's to come later. But he's like, Mon Capitan, which I love how he says it. I just slaughtered that. Mon Capitan. I thought you'd never get here if you just try to figure it out. And it's that whole idea of what is a paradox and are you able to think outside of the box? Freaking love that line. And it's Q. This is why we can see Q is trying to help Picard. Like, I want you to get there. Get there.
That's good stuff there. Gary, what about you? What are some of your favorite lines?
Okay, I have 2 from Q. One is that I like when he says, "Time may be eternal, Captain, but our patience is not." When he's talking about the continuum. The second one is probably my second favorite of the episode. We'll talk about later about my first one, but and when I saw this, I went back and I must have rewound it to watch this scene 3 times. For that fraction of a second, you were open to ideas you had never considered. That is the exploration that awaits you, not mapping stars and studying nebulas, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence. Not only the quote itself, but the way that de Lancie delivers it. I just think that is just a magnificent moment.
That's good stuff there. Kyle, what say you? What are some of your favorite lines? Q lines or other quotes?
Jean-Luc crossing into Klingon territory? It's absurd, but then I can never say no to you. Oh, so that's why you married me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
And I also love Geordi. Captain Picard to the bridge. Captain, we've got a problem with the warp core, the phaser inducers, or some other damn thing. It feels like that should be a line out of Lower Decks.
Right.
One of my favorite quotes comes actually from Picard. It's just so funny. And what he says is, or Beverly, when he comes on board Beverly's ship, the medical ship, the USS Pasteur, and Captain Beverly Picard says, "I prepared quarters for you on deck 5. You might want to get some rest." "No, I'm fine." Picard says, "I don't need rest." Beverly says, "Nell, please escort the ambassador to his quarters." Picard says, "Look, you're treating me as if I'm an invalid, but I do have a few years left in me. I do not want to be led around, and I do not want to be patronized." Beverly says, "You're right. I'm sorry." Picard says, "Now I'm going to go get some rest." Good stuff there. Anybody have any other quotes? All right, we'll move along here. We'll get to the next mission report. All right, the next mission report. This is the main episode discussion as we start getting into the plot and other subplots and such. And for all good things, let me ask you guys: what are your thoughts on the subplots? Any other scenes that stand out for you? We'll get into the Q part of this as well. But there was a lot of other little things going on here. And for those of you that maybe need a little reminder, we have the Worf and Deanna and Riker thing going on, and Picard and Crusher we have that thing going on. We have several other things. Have some guest stars back as well. We got Tasha Yar. We got Miles O'Brien. So there's a lot of things to cover here, a lot of other little moments other than the main Q subplot here that's happening with the 3 timelines there. So Amy, I'm going to start with you first.
Okay, so I'm just really talkative today. So I've got 2 little things. One short one that I'll start off, and then I must talk about Troy. We all know I will. I believe Picard to be such an amazing leader, and it's exemplified in this episode, specifically when he's with season 1, his crew. And when the crew sort of halfway through, and Tasha and Troy have both like, what do you mean red alert? There's nothing here. And he's giving these weird, commands, and Troy takes him in, and then Tasha is like, "Okay, we're done following you. We're done. So can you give us any explanation?" And he goes into this beautiful soliloquy that not only lets the crew know that he knows what he's doing. Like he's got the confidence, so they can rest assured. He gives and compliments them. It's like, "I know what you can do," and builds them up. Like, these are all qualities that leaders know how to do on the fly. And I'm just giving Picard credit for that, because that was amazing how he was able to turn the tide of the crew. Now, for Troy and Worf, everyone knows I love Troy, and I just love Troy with almost everyone she's been with. But Worf is my second favorite. I feel that they did the best Worf and Troy in this episode. In the one where the one with the murder mystery and the walls, and
right, yeah,
because Worf and Deanna are in that one and dating that one, and that one's okay. But the way that they portray it is, I feel, healthy. It's funny. It's like, why is Riker going to be there? On our date? No, like, let's just focus. I just really appreciate that subplot and how that translates to the super future, and then how that's sort of resolved in Picard. Like that line with Worf and Troy is, I feel, very well done. It's very short because it happened in season 7, but sort of if you extend it to season 4, when we first meet Alexander, that I feel is where the foundation grows. And that's why I believe that Worf and Troy could actually be together.
I like that Worf line when she's like, wait, we were, in sunset and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, very stimulated.
Yes.
Good stuff there, Amy. Gary, what about you? What are some other subplots that stood out for you, sir?
Okay, let me take a second to address the Worf Troy.
Okay.
I love Troy. I love Worf. I never bought the two of them together. Maybe because it's like we spent 7 seasons waiting for the reunion of Riker and Troy. And this to me was kind of like Chakotay in season 7 of Voyager, where it's like, wait, what? It's like sometimes like you can't define why you feel a way, but you just something
That
feels
felt
wrong.
forced,
You
didn't it?
Feels
Wow.
why, yeah. And so I didn't, I mean, I can see maybe they wanted to try something. They knew things were wrapping up. They wanted to try different combinations of whatever, but Troy and Riker belong together. That's just my opinion. And so anything that, and Worf belongs with Jadzia. So, but we don't know that yet.
Right.
I really enjoyed seeing some version of like the pre-Farpoint scenes, like Picard's arrival, with Tasha. It was great to see Tasha, bringing him to the ship, the welcoming, the transfer of command ceremony, all of that. We know that it didn't really happen where he called Red Alert, but at least from Troy's description, we get like an idea. It says, well, there was then a reception in 10 forward, and she introduced him to all the crew. So between her description and what we see, we kind of get like a little almost kind of Farpoint prequel in a way, leading up. And I thought that was really very cool. Okay, well that's the side stories. I liked the fact that Data had like 50 cats. I thought that was very cool. Everywhere you look, it's like, wait, there's one on the mantle, there's 2 on the sofa, there's one at his foot. It's like, oh my gosh, Data. But I thought that was very cool. I liked the fact that for the future Enterprise, especially like the first time you watch the show, anything could happen, because we're off thinking, okay, our main 7 will survive. Troy's already dead. So whatever happens into the future Enterprise, we don't know. I mean, anybody could die. And I liked that uncertainty. Like the first time that we watched. So I thought they did a very, very good job, especially with the 7 years ago Enterprise.
Gotcha. Good stuff there, Gary. Kyle, what about you, sir? What subplots stood out for you?
Well, to be honest with you, Amy and Gary kind of stole my thunder, because I thought it was great going back before Account at Farpoint and having Picard see the Enterprise for the first time and get on it for the first time. I thought that was great. I think that Troy Worf stuff was very interesting because it felt like the most natural of, like, okay, this actually feels like something now compared to the rest of the time. But there is actually one little subplot that I thought they could have played a little more with in the, what I'll call the current timeline, is when like Geordi's eyes started to heal and you had a crew member who lost her baby because of the time reversal effect that was going on.
That was Alyssa Agawa, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was sad. Yeah.
And that was a very brief moment that they kind of, you wish you would have had Picard just take a moment and walk over to her and say something or something. But
yeah,
I thought they could have played up a little bit more on that effect, especially on that that timeline for the Enterprise because it seemed to be having the most effect on them. And I think they could have done a few other little interesting things with that. And then two, in a way, seeing everybody get together in the future, but it's still, in some ways it was positive, but in some ways it did have a sense of sadness because of the way Picard was portrayed in the future with the mental illness and the questions about him and things of that nature. And also you have the rift between Worf and Riker. And I thought they played up all those aspects pretty well, but I have some other thoughts about that, which I'm going to save for another part of this episode.
Well said. Yes, Gary.
Really quickly. The scene I love most with Tasha is where he makes that kind of like faux pas about telling Worf to handle security, and she stands up. She goes,
Oh.
"Are you planning a change in command?" Because that was really, really good. I like that. And I really, really like the present time, very kind of quiet scene with Beverly and Picard, where they kiss. I thought that was really, really well done. It's like it felt natural. It's like they didn't treat it as like, oh, we've been waiting 7 years for this. No, it's like it was played well. It felt real. I don't know how the rest of you like that scene, but I thought that was really, really well done.
That was actually going to be my first pick, was that scene there, because it really, the Picard and Beverly thing has been kind of progressing, whether it was them having tea together as a,
breakfast together.
Yeah, breakfast tea together, as we learned in the other Q episode where Vash was there when she came in and stuff like that. But and then they had the episode where they got bonded together and they could hear each other's thoughts,
attached.
Attached. There you go. Yeah. And so, and then of course, what we've seen since what happened with their relationship in Star Trek Picard, but that was a really nice scene, and it kind of surprised me where she just goes in for the big kiss. That wasn't a peck on the cheek, that was a kiss.
Yeah, well, that happens to me all the time. So you just
yeah, my wife comes in all the time and just kisses me out of nowhere. It's great. But it was one of those things. I was like, wow, I want to see this progress. Progress. I want to see more of this, and so I'm glad. And then of course it's interesting because we get the present day, which that scene was, and then we get the past, and then we get the future, which is kind of like the Debbie Downer version of what we get. And then Picard does make that one line where he says, "I prefer to not, I don't want to set things in stone. Everything can change, for whatever reason." Yeah. And so I thought that was nice. And that there's the one scene that I like too, where it comes off as a little bit of humor, where already mentioned that Riker asked Troy, do you want to do something? She says, like, we have plans, referring to her and Worf. And he's kind of shook by it, and he goes to the bridge, and Picard's giving the spiel about what's going on and asking Riker, if something happens, I need you to take over. And you see that he's lost in this thought. He's like, not only is he lost in a thought, he's like, have I lost Troy? Yeah. And there's a reference in the future about how he always thought he would end up with her again. Mm-hmm. And how many times have we seen, or maybe you've experienced it yourself, where you missed your opportunity of trying to go back to that person you wanted to see what could have been more of, And so those two scenes really have a big, importance in the future, especially where we see what happens with Troy and Riker eventually, So those two were my choices there. So let's go ahead and hit the next mission report. Oh, before we do though, I just want to give a shout out to Joel, because that was kind of funny. Joel in the chat says Data's hair's always cracks me up with the gray.
Yes, with his streak.
Distinguished. Yep, as Kyle said. Well, let's go ahead and do the next mission report. All right, this is where we're going to dive into the main Q storyline here, guys. Your thoughts on the main Q storyline, and specific to this one, and of course its impact on the Star Trek timeline. Jean-Luc Picard finds himself moving uncontrollably back and forth through time. Picard soon discovers that Q is responsible for his erratic time travel, caught in a paradox that Q has devised. Picard realizes he must risk his life and the lives of his crew to save humanity. And what's interesting too is I was watching some of the behind the scenes on this. I think they wrote this in like 2 weeks because they needed to have like a final episode, and it was amazing how it came all about. If you watch the behind the scenes on, let me just showcase the season 7 Blu-ray that I have right here. There's some good behind the scenes on this and how that came about, and some good trivia on that as well. So. But yeah, so as we know, this episode is one of the best episodes of Star Trek in general, but also, of course, one of the best of TNG. But a lot of stuff. Q, you know what's funny too? I timed it. Q doesn't make an appearance until 39 minutes and seconds into this episode.
Yep.
39 minutes into this episode. So you're like, and you know, knowing that we were going to cover this, I'm like, can't wait till we get to some Q stuff here. And then like, oh wait, that happens. Oh, God,
which, if this was a 2-parter, would have been almost to the end of the first part.
Yes, yes.
That would have been the cliffhanger for the week.
Kyle, I'm going to start with you first. Your thoughts on the main Q storyline and this paradox that's going on in 3 different timelines.
Okay, well, you hit on the first thing. We don't see Q until 39 minutes into this. To me, even though Q is a massive part of this episode, it doesn't feel like a Q episode. Even once he shows up, this still feels like a Picard-centric episode where Q's just kind of in the back, popping in and out of the background every few minutes. Obviously, we're picking up from Farpoint with the continuation of the trial, the ultimate test for Picard, and you know you have Q kind of we see the difference in Q where now he's kind of giving Picard a little aid here because of, you know, Picard is such a good puppy. Let's just put it that way. He's a great pet.
Reference to what Data said.
It's just it feels a little weird. I mean, it's a wonderful episode, but it doesn't feel like a Q-centric episode to me. It's like, yeah, he's back there playing the puppeteer with the helping with the time slips, but it's still all about Picard. And Q kind of just feels like he's in the background a little bit, maybe until that final conversation he has with Picard on Earth 3 billion years ago. But I think that's what's the interesting thing about it. And I mean, obviously Patrick Stewart just carries this episode phenomenally, but it's not the most Q-centric of the Q episodes, I guess is the best way I can put it.
That's a good way to put it. Gary, what say you? What do you think of the main Q storyline here?
Well, overall, as you said, Kevin, I agree. I think this is probably one of the best. Obviously, it's one of the top with a 9+ on IMDb. I mean, come on. This is one of the top TNG stories. I actually think this is probably one of the best series finales ever, really, full stop.
Yep.
This is how you do a series finale. Even though there's a little kind of skosh in the second half, a little skosh, too much technobabble about anti-time and multiple tachyon beams and stuff, but that's fine because the character stuff is good. I actually think, Kyle, that I agree with you that it doesn't feel like a Q thing because he doesn't show up until so late, really, in the first half. However, the way I look at it is that the first time that we see old Picard and Geordi out in the grape fields, which is about like 10 to 12 minutes in, from the minute that he first sees the vision of those people from the trial, you know that we're going to be revisiting that trial. And so then for the next, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we're basically waiting for Q to kind of show up because he sees those, I don't know what you would call them, the ragged people. We see them like 3 different times before Q even shows up. So it's basically kind of like setting us up for Q's arrival. And it's like, okay, we know he's going to show up when he's going to, because those people keep appearing. I think that of one of the scenes that you're showing on screen, Kevin, which is one of my favorite Q moments in this, is when he takes Picard
hold on though. Remember, we do have the Q moment segment next. So just
okay. Well, okay, about the I'll focus on the mystery then. So I think when I went to well, obviously this isn't only the second time I've watched it, but every time I've seen this after the first time, I've actually kind of enjoyed it more because I already know what the mystery is. So I can put my trying to figure out the mystery aside because I already know kind of how that's going to, and I can focus just on the character stuff. I actually think that this is a very, in terms of, and tell me if you don't want me to focus on this, Kevin, in terms of the Q Picard relationship, I actually think this is a very natural follow-up from Tapestry.
Yes, definitely.
From
good point.
From Q being there as Picard's, I'll say it like, friend enough to kind of like try to help him when he's dying, to here he defies the continuum. I mean, the continuum is like sets rules, but Q says, well, that was the helping you was kind of my idea, and so I think that, and that's one of the things about this Q series we've been doing is you forget when you watch like 10, 15, 20 episodes between the Q appearances, how naturally just watching the Q stuff in order, how naturally it flows and how naturally it connects. So I actually think this is a very logical culmination of everything that Q and Picard have been through, what Q does for him in this episode. And that's all I'll say for the moment, because I know, Kevin, that we're going to get into it later. Oh, the one thing I want to say, when towards the end, when Picard says, Q, what is it that you're trying to tell me? I really noticed that Picard at that moment is really, really listening to Q. He's trying to understand. He's not antagonistic. He's not scoffing. He's not, will you get out of here, Q? When he asks him, what is it you're trying to tell me? He is invested in what Q has to tell him. And I thought that just shows how far we've come since Farpoint, since Picard now takes Q seriously. He suspects but doesn't know really that he's there to help him, and he really sees Q as a source of help, of wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And that really kind of rang out for me here.
That's a good point there. Yeah. The moments when you're watching Picard and Q go back and forth, whether it was the 20 questions type of thing with a yes or no answer, and you're even though Q is having a little fun with Picard, he's trying to get him to figure it out himself. It's kind of like when my parents were like, "Yeah, you can get this, Kevin. You can get this," that type of thing. And, or a teacher being very encouraging to you, as I know you've done, Amy, about trying to get someone to figure out the math puzzle themselves and get something in there. So, see how I did that segue to you there, Amy, where you can.
Thank you. Because I'm just going to pick that right up and go into counseling mode, because it is that, Gary, what you're like, I'm going to put that to the side. That's where my brain went. And Kevin, you just launched me off perfectly, because it's those types of questions that you are asking either yourself or you're asking another person. And there's two types of questions, open-ended and closed-ended. And Q is like, all right, figure this out. You can ask me yes or no. Like those are your options. And you are going to like figure out how you're going to move on, because there's only a yes or no. But a why question, those open-ended questions, that's where your curiosity goes. And when Q says charting the unknown possibilities of existence in your mind, like, I've been down this deep rabbit hole past couple of months and really going into the existence of my brain and all of that, and trying to find these paradoxes, which I found one in this. I'm using different words. It's not me or anything, but when you zoom in to find the big picture, like that type of paradox is mental gymnastics for our brain. And how many twirls in the air can we do to recognize time, anti-time, right?
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that part of the Q story.
That's a good point. Kyle, I want to turn to you on something because you let me know early before we got on that you had a hot take about this episode. And since it's kind of tied to the main Q storyline, I thought you would give your thoughts on that and give us your hot take.
Okay, well, before I give my hot take, I really do wish our science officer, Haley, was here because I need somebody to really explain the time, anti-time thing to me in a better
Yes, I know.
But okay, so I have a hot take as and it hit me while I was rewatching this episode for this podcast. I really do think that the final 2 seasons of Picard have taken away some of the magic of this episode. And I say that because you have the whole final season 2 with Q involved in it. And then you have season 3, which is the reunion episode where we see everybody older getting together. And I think because you have that now, where you didn't have that when this episode first came out and for a very long time, you were kind of left with that wondering. And then we kind of got our fan service, which I'm not complaining about. Please don't misinterpret that I'm complaining about. But
best fan service ever.
Yeah. But I do think it does take away from some of the magic of this particular episode, because I just feel like now, instead of being a finale in a way, it's just part of a continuation. And it takes away, I think, a little bit of, not so much on the Q side as much, because again, I still feel like Q could have been.
Do you mean the emotional impact of the crew kind of bonding in the next level, and I
think that's where it hits for me, Kevin. It's the emotional impact. I think the events, especially of season 3 of Picard with the crew, take away a big chunk of the heart and the emotional impact of this episode. And I watching it without that and not having knowledge of that, it has a lot of emotion, but it's changed now. And how I look at this episode has changed because of getting those seasons of Picard. And I think and you have it, Kevin, if you can bring up the slide, because you have the slide of the poker table, I believe, with them all playing poker at the end of season 3 of Picard.
Yeah, we'll touch on that a little later.
Okay, Kyle, let me ask you, because let me see if I'm really hearing what you're saying. You're saying that after this episode, bringing back Q again, or even seeing the crew like aged 20 years, whatever, you're saying that kind of diluted this episode? Or are you saying that this should have been the last we saw of the crew, period? Not do movies, not that kind of thing, that this should have been your final memory of this crew. Is that what you're saying?
No, because I think the movies are a little different, because they feel more Trek in the action, where season 3 of Picard really did feel like it was the emotional goodbye of this crew. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, because that being the emotional goodbye instead of this, I'm not saying, please, and like I said, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I hate the episode now. I'm just saying the emotional impact of this episode has vastly changed because of what we got in Picard season 2 and season 3. And I think that's a very big deal, because this is considered one of the greatest Star Trek Next Generation episodes of all time and one of the greatest finales of all time. Yeah. But I think it has been impacted by what has been done in recent years. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it changes it.
Yeah.
It has changed it. It's changed how the scope, I think, in what you view this episode as.
We're going to touch on the poker game there, because I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that's a good take, Kyle, because you do kind of look at it a little bit differently, knowing what's going to happen, And, but, it's interesting, too, because there's parts of me before we got Star Trek Picard that I wanted a little more, and I got it. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and let's get some Q talk in here on our next mission report. So this is where we like to have a little fun. Is there a Q scene or a Q character moment that best stands out for you? Q had its moments, although it was little few and far between where we've had in previous episodes, especially of course the last one with Tapestry.
Yeah.
Q had a lot of funny moments, a lot of moments in this, but in this one, he kind of was, not in it as much as we might have expected. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, or he has been in previous episodes, but he had his moments. So give me your favorite Q moment of this episode. Amy, I'm going to start with you.
All right. That's when he takes Picard back billions of years, which got me thinking about the math and the proportionality of that. So don't get me started with that. And he's like, oh, look, there they are, two little, I don't know, amoeba, whatever, trying to swim together. And then, and I really do like a little pond of goo.
Yes.
And he spreads that ooh out. I just love that. But that moment, again, is just like, oh, here they are. They're going to bump into each other. Oh, too bad. You've destroyed humanity.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
That's a good one. Gary, what about you? What's your favorite Q moment?
And I do want to, just as a quick postscript, the set in that scene, the colors, the volcanoes, everything was great in terms of the background of that scene. My scene was a brief moment, but I think was so telling. Toward that great scene at the end in the courtroom where they're really just kind of connecting with each other. And, existence has been saved. We've all been saved. And then Picard very honestly says, thank you. And Q kind of like stops and he goes and he pauses, and you can tell he's almost like taken aback by Picard's honest gratitude.
Yeah.
He's not going to say, aha, I knew you needed me, whatever. They're both beyond that at this point. And Q kind of leans back and he goes, what for? Not that he's trying to get him again or launch, but he's honestly almost moved, I mean, you could say, and to say like, well, what for? And that's the beginning of that amazing dialogue for the whole rest of it. But just that little moment where Picard's honest gratitude almost kind of catches him off guard and makes him stop and drop all of the trickster pretense and drop all of the you're just a small human thing and just honestly connect with this guy for the first time. I love that.
Yeah, well said, Gary. Well said. Kyle, what about you? What's your favorite Q moment?
Well, there's a couple. One, if you want like a classic Q moment, is when he's letting Picard ask the questions. And then he calls Picard out. Well, no, that was two questions. But you can see Picard getting a little flustered, but Q was right. So I like that whole scene and that whole exchange because that's classic Q Picard. But I really thought it was very heartfelt almost with Q when he's trying to explain to Picard, you know the answer. You can, it's within you to figure this out. Like he so wants Picard to succeed. And I think there's an honest, genuine, like, I want you, I know you can do this. I believe in you. I know you can do this. And you haven't seen that from Q before. And I think, again, kind of what Gary said too, in the later moment when Picard says, thank you. This is a different Q we're seeing at this point. This is a Q who has adopted Picard as his friend and cares about Picard more than he will ever care to admit to at this point. And he's actually taking a risk, even helping Picard with this, because who knows what consequences he could fall upon him from the continuum for helping Picard through this trial. And so I think that's kind of interesting. And I think like you guys said earlier, it starts with Tapestry, but I really think it does expound here by leaps and bounds.
Good stuff there, Kyle. Good point. I'm just going to leave with one towards the end there, and there's a picture there on the bottom right where Picard, or you see Q being brought back. His chair is being brought back into the black void, and he stands up and he says, "I will see you out there."
Yeah.
And looking back,
cool.
I'm like, wow, when's that going to happen? I remember that.
Okay. Are you saying the Q is out there?
It was one of those things where I was like, at the first, I was like, when are we going to see him next? Is he going to be in the movie? And then he wasn't in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're going to be in the sex. Is he going to be in any of the movies? And it took like 30 years later when Star Trek Picard came out that we finally got the Q reunion with Picard, which was just totally fitting. So I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that John came back as well. So yeah. All right, guys. So that is the main 3 mission reports here, but we have one that is usually our general discussion. If there's anything you want to bring to the table, but I got 2 I got to bring to the table here that are important here. So let's go ahead and get to those. All right. Well, before I wanted to get you guys to talk about the famous scene at the poker table, guys. This was a big deal, and it was a great ending for this TV series. And then, of course, we saw Star Trek Picard bring them all back around the table and play it. And, you know, what was very fitting, too, is that at the end of this episode, Picard drops in on it and says, I thought I might join you. And then Data says, would you like to deal? And he talks about, you know, he's bragging a little bit how he used to be a good card player. And then Troy says something,
you were always welcome.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
She delivers it so well. What a
Yes.
counselor. Like, yeah.
There is no way they did that in just one take. No way.
I know it hits me, you know, and it was just a sweet thing. And then it just, part of me kind of felt like we, you know, just like maybe Picard did at everyone else at the table, that there was some missed opportunities there. And that was one of the little underlining plot threads in this episode that I did want to mention, that they were asking, like, why do you think Picard told us what happened in this future timeline? And then I think it was either Geordi saying maybe he wanted us to know for a reason. And then, you know, about staying in touch with each other. And then you see the look between Riker and Worf about, you know, not letting petty differences like that divide them in the future. And I thought that was a really cool thing, because we find out, you know, yeah, they kind of do their own things, but they end up coming back together and helping each other. And these are really iconic scenes of both the end of these series here. And I'm so happy. Although the only thing I don't like about the Picard one is how dimly lit it was. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the first card game that we see that ended, of course, with TNG, and then what we finally got to see again. And Kyle, I'm going to go back to you on this, because you kind of touched on how you felt that this Picard series kind of maybe took away some feelings and thoughts or whatever with All Good Things. So I'm gonna let you start here. Your thoughts on the famous poker games.
Okay, so on the first poker game, one little funny thing again that I noticed for the first time while watching it for this podcast, is it just me, or when Picard starts talking about, oh, in my younger days I was a card shark, Riker, Worf, and Data all kind of have like this look on their face, like, oh yeah.
Do you think Picard cleaned up on that table? Or do you think Riker did his Riker stuff? And
I have no doubt Riker threw the game.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, go ahead.
So here's ultimately the thing. Looking at it now, I think I look at it at 2 different ways with these. When I look at the card game now at the end of TNG, I think it's finally Picard fully joining his crew. I mean, not that, and what I mean by that is realizing his own humanity in a way, and like, I'm the captain, but this is my family. And how he says he should have done this a long time ago. He's realized through this whole experience that he's just been through how important these people truly are to him. And I think you see that, where now with what you have now at the end of the Picard season 3, is it truly feels like a family reunion in this aspect. Mm-hmm. And that's where the emotion changes. You look at this and it's like, it's the family back together, having this, what we know at pretty much at this time is this final moment for us to share with them. Now, it's probably the odds of them all being on screen together again, probably not very likely, but with the current stance of other forces outside of their control. But whereas before Picard, when you have this scene, you feel like, okay, they're truly a family now, and you leave off knowing there's this future ahead of them where these characters are going to be. Now that we've had Picard, and we see where their journey has taken them, and they're coming back together as a family. It's kind of like endpoints. It's like, okay, we're at the end of TNG now. Instead of it being a goodbye, it's the start of them being a family in a totally different way than they were for 7 seasons in Next Generation. And then by Picard, it's that family coming back together and having that love for each other across the board. And it's just because of that I feel like the emotions and how the weight changed from the end of All Good Things before Picard to where it is now after Picard. And again, like I said earlier, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's changed and it's evolved and it's grown because of what they've added to it.
Gotcha. Amy, what are your thoughts on the famous poker endings?
Yeah, if you look at TNG, they're a very unique show. They basically have had 3 different endings: All Good Things, Nemesis, and then Picard season 3.
Good point.
And if you look at those endings, 2 out of the 3 is the entire crew together. With Nemesis, and I was happy that was the ending, but we all know that was the Picard and Data show. Data died sacrificing himself for the crew, which I still believe was important, despite what some people say. But it was Picard talking to before is how that ended. Like, it wasn't even them together. So, Kyle, I really agree with you. The emotionality came from Picard season 3. And as great as All Good Things was, Nemesis, I don't even want to talk about that as an ending anymore because it was so vastly different. It wasn't the crew. And we get that with All Good Things and Picard season 3. So I am very grateful that 2 out of the 3 endings of TNG is the entire crew.
That's a good point there. Gary, what say you about the famous poker scenes?
Yeah. Just quickly, I think if had they rejigged Nemesis to where the wedding was the final scene in that movie, then that would have been kind
That's
of
a good
interesting.
Yeah.
To see how that would leave you with the crew. I actually see the Picard, the picture that you have on the bottom right, which is all of them in Picard around the table. I actually see that more as, there's Sir Patrick and his best friend sitting around and enjoying their camaraderie and having a good time, like kind of like Ocean's 11 style, rather than the what I think was the very emotional, moving ending of All Good Things. So I actually want to say that I actually had an unexpected reaction to rewatch when I was rewatching All Good Things last night to the poker scene. And it was due solely to our conversation during our tapestry stream last week.
We're changing lives here. I love it.
When he says, I should have done this a long time ago, I was immediately like flooded with everything that we were talking about last week about our, regrets, things that we wish we'd done.
About for those that didn't listen to it, what if Q gave you a moment to go back and relive a certain point in time? Yeah.
Right. Whether it was like regrets, whether it's not doing something you did or doing something that you didn't. And so just this whole idea of like regret, like slammed into me because I actually been thinking about that stream we did all week. So when he said this, I was really hit by the idea of, wow, if there's something that it's like, I'm not saying that this episode has a moral. I don't think it does. But what that line hit me with is like, don't time is very precious. Don't like think you're going to have all the time in the world at some point to do all the things that you want to do or wish you do. It's like take advantage of like every moment that you have to do it, because there's like a tinge of regret, I think, when Picard says, I should have done this a long time ago. I mean, he's glad to be there now in that moment, but there's equal amounts of regret for all the missed opportunities in the time where he could have been doing this with these people over the last 7 years. He probably wouldn't have done it like that first year because, you know, he's still learning about the crew, but you know what I mean. And it's like that whole idea of regret for things like not done, and the opportunity was right there, right in his face. There's for the taking. And for whatever reason, he chose not to. And now he's glad to be there then, but a little bit sad that he left it until now. And all these thoughts just kind of ran into me because of what we were talking about last week. Had we not had that conversation about Tapestry last week, I probably would not have reacted to that line like I did last night watching this. So yeah, that was my reaction.
Nice. Good stuff there. I was just reminded too. I was just like, I love naturally aged Beverly in Picard a lot better than fake aged Beverly in this one, because she looks so much better naturally aged than she did in the fake age one. I just had to say that. God, you guys covered some good stuff there. I want to kind of just bounce off what you had mentioned there, Amy, about the 3 different endings that we had that we thought were the endings at the time for Next Gen Crew. And I always did feel, I do like Nemesis, but the thing that I didn't like about it was I didn't feel like after the way they ended it, and what Gary said about maybe the wedding should have been the ending. I wasn't satisfied with that, and I'm tired. I'm really tired of a movie that's supposed to be the ending, and you're killing off a legacy character to where they're just like a drone or a robot with data. And you know, I always kept saying in the back of my head, okay, he's B4 now. He's in B4's body, right? We need to see what happens with this. We need to. I can't in my head canon. I can't. You know, with live action can here, I can't see that's how it ends. You know, Data's character is way too popular, and I understand why they did it. You know, it's an emotional impact and stuff, but it was nice to see that play out in Picard with all the, you know, the clones or whatever it is, the androids and all that kind of stuff, and how that tied into saving Picard's life and extending his life. I thought that was great way to kind of change that and everything. But I'm going to say this, someone who was very disappointed in how the legacy characters were handled in the Star Wars universe, and seeing how other television shows, series, and movies did. Star Trek Picard bringing all of these actors back together and then ending it with this scene here that mirrored what happened with All Good Things, also showcasing to you guys as fans and viewers that all the differences that they went through, divorces, whatever, they came back together and played poker again. And my point saying that is that, and the reference to the Star Wars that I mentioned, was that this was the perfect way to treat legacy characters. Don't kill one off just to be dramatic.
Right.
Everyone comes back. And it was the most satisfying thing to see, and then have that tie in to this episode of All Good Things. It was one of the most satisfying moments and one of the best endings. If we never see these live action people in live action again, I'm fine with that, because they did a wonderful job. And I can watch this episode and the final episode of Picard back to back, but now I kind of just want to go watch season 3 again. But anyway, it's just perfect television for me, in a nice warm comfy blanket in my Trek nostalgia. It was done absolutely perfect. And I remember seeing a meme saying, you know, what Star Wars fans got and then what Star Trek fans got, you know, and how much it was so much better for Star Trek fans and do it that way. So anyway, we're not done yet, guys, because I got a big what if here. And originally this was just going to be in the trivia, But I got a little bonus trivia discussion here I want to run by you guys. So the decision to end the series after 7 seasons came as somewhat of a surprise to cast members who were signed on for 8 seasons. However, 7 years became the normal span for successful Trek series, including Deep Space Nine, Voyager lasting the exact same length. And I found this article called redshirtalwaysdied.com. Star Trek Generation should have had an 8th season. It was canceled after 7 seasons for several reasons. Part of the reason was due to the financial cost of the show, with Paramount already putting Deep Space Nine on the air at this point, and Voyager was on deck. The folks at the studio opted to focus on less expensive shows. That wasn't the only reason. It was a minor one at that. But it went hand in hand with the idea of converting the television series into a film series. It was all about maximizing profits at this point. And what's funny, too, for those of you that may know this, but Mike McMahon, who went on to join Star Trek, of course, be the showrunner for Star Trek Lower Decks, which is a show that we covered here on Union Fed, and I love it dearly. He did this funny book called Star Trek The Next Generation Warped. And it says an engaging guide to the never aired 8th season. And it's based on at TNG _S8 by Mike McMahon. And it says from the book jacket, it says in the basement of the Star Trek archives, behind shelves of USS Enterprise D, models, bags of wigs, and bins of plastic phasers sits a dusty cardboard box. Inside is a pile of VHS tapes that contain never before seen episodes and behind the scenes footage of something truly amazing. The world thinks that there are only 7 seasons of Star Trek Generation, but there's one more, a secret season. Then he goes on to say, actually, not really, but that didn't stop Mike McMahon. So I guess he kind of goes in there with a little funny thing of what he thought that would. I have not read this book. I didn't know it existed when I was going into this trivia. So I was very kind of curious about that. I kind of went down a little rabbit hole here and even found if you're watching the YouTube, found a fan's version of what season 8 is. And basically they kind of have the 3 movies that could have been, like a season 8 all thing and have it in there and everything. But I decided to turn this into a what if question for you guys here. So let's have some fun with this. Star Trek season 8. Here is the scenario and the parameters. Let's say Star Trek season 8 took place between Star Trek Generations and Star Trek First Contact. Okay. So put your for those of you listening, for those of you watching, put your head mind frame into that. Okay. Q makes one more appearance in season 8. What would you like to see from the season 8 storyline, and how or what kind of impact would Q have made on season 8 of Picard and the crew? And the reason why I got inspired by this was the last line that Q says to Picard. Says, "I will see you out there." And it took forever to finally see him. Now, of course, we do have this so-called feels like a season finale, where Picard finally plays, poker with the crew. But then we get Generations right after that. And the ramifications of Generations, you would get, of course, the team up of Picard and Kirk. Of course, What do? They kill off a legacy character to bring in the new blood into the films and everything. And I have an issue with that. I didn't care for the fact that I had to kill him off. But I would like to have seen that mentioned and gone through there. What other storylines could they have gone through there as well? What characters could they have brought back? What things could they have tied up that we wanted, that we've discussed a little bit throughout covering these Q episodes? So does anyone want to go first? What would they have liked to have seen from a season 8? Gary?
This is just totally off the top of my head. Clearly, this is between Generations and First Contact, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we are going to have to see the initial voyages of the Enterprise E.
Correct.
We're going to have to see them get the ship and go through whatever they're going to go through as they adjust to this new ship. New characters like, forgive me, who's the helmsman in First Contact, the one that gets Borgified and killed?
I know the actor.
Neil McDonough. He's fantastic. I love it.
Neil McDonough is the actor.
Right. He's great.
He's been in a ton of stuff. Of course.
Yeah, he's always good in anything he does.
Yeah.
You would have him.
He was in the first Captain America movie.
Was he Ensign Hawk?
Yes, Hawk. That's right. Yes. Good job, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Obviously, you'd have new characters like Hawk, but in terms of a plot, and this is just off the top of my head, I would really like to see a season long arc like the Zindi arc. Have them do like one with
From
side
Enterprise.
stories, of course, over the season. But I actually think if we're keeping this focused on Q, I would base it around around two of his comments toward the end. One is saying, because I don't think this was just provocative, I think there was truth in this from Q. Instead of using the last 7 years to change and to grow, you have squandered them. And then later on, he says, that's the exploration that awaits you, not mapping stars and studying nebulas. So first of all, I think if Q comes back, he is going to expect, I think quite rightly, that to have impacted Picard, and that Picard would be like acting on that he wouldn't be like Picard. I can't believe, after everything that happened and all good things, that whenever Picard got a random mission, oh yeah, we have to go map the Gorgonzola cluster or whatever, that Picard, that's going to be satisfying anymore. I honestly don't think so, because that's always going to be what happened to him, is always going to be in his mind, that maybe, why aren't we, as Q says, charting the unknown possibility? A philosopher like Picard, an archaeologist like Picard, would take that to heart. And I don't think Q would be patient with Picard or the crew just defaulting back to, as he says, mapping stars and studying nebulas. Q would be going, what do I have to do to motivate you people? It's like, I've just said that you've kind of like squandered the last 7 years through various things, and you're still doing it. So I think Q would be very impatient at that point. And I don't think Picard would be satisfied kind of kicking back into regular things. And so I don't know how that would manifest itself, but I actually think that that's kind of where both of them would be coming from.
Good stuff there, Gary. Kyle, good luck following that.
It's going to go one of two ways. If you are leaning towards earlier in season 8, where it's closer to Generations, there's only one. There's one answer to this, and it's real simple. We finally get the answers of Guinan and Q, and what that history is, and Picard in the middle of it.
Glad you brought that up, Kyle.
I think that is still one of the biggest fully untapped stories out there. Now, if you're going to play it closer to First Contact, I really think you could have a very interesting episode with Q and Picard, where Q questions Picard about his anger towards the Borg. That really starts setting off that bomb inside of Picard, as his hatred for the Borg grows and grows into First Contact, where his hatred for the Borg is almost taking control of him.
The line must be drawn here.
But I really think there's some. But I think because of Q introducing Picard basically to the Borg, and then the ramifications of that, have an episode with Q and Picard dealing with that aspect of what's inside Picard. Maybe like Q's trying to get him to get over it or get out of it, and instead of being Q, makes it worse. And that leads into more of his feelings and emotions going into First Contact.
It's good stuff. Yeah, I like that. Amy, what about you? What are you feeling for season 8 between Star Trek Generations and First Contact, and how would Q be involved?
Well, I'm going to flip the script because I need to know more about Q. First of all, we don't see another Q for a very long time. And
Voyager.
No, Amanda in True Q.
Oh, I thought you meant like after All Good Things. That's what I thought.
Oh, well, I mean, like, so I don't want to judge an entire civilization based off of one character. So I need to flip the script. And many times, most podcasters will say, oh, he's just like a little child throwing a temper tantrum, especially in the first Q episodes, in TNG. And he's just, and so I need to know, has Q progressed in all of this time.
Mm.
Picard has been able to think, oh, it's getting larger in the past. That, like, so what has Q done to grow? And where is he on, is he average? I don't know. It was sort of the same thing with Odo. And when we finally got to see Odo go to his people in the sea of whatever, I'm not that well versed in Deep Space Nine, but you know what I'm talking
The
about.
Sea of Goo.
Sea of Goo that Odo returns to. Like, I want to see some kind of conclusion of who is this Q people, and sort of like Odo is this unique individual. I'd like to see that in season 8.
That's good stuff there. You know, I was just double checking the timeline of when this episode came out, which is in 94. And then we get the next appearance of Q 2 years later in the first of his 3-episode arc in Voyager, so 96. So there's like a 2-year gap there, if you want to stick with, you know, real timeline there. So there's obviously room to do this final season here. And Kyle, you touched on what I was kind of wondering about is I want to have Guinan back because we get her in. I want to follow up what happened in Generations, you know, with Professor Soren and all that kind of stuff, and the ribbon of time and everything. And, you know, and it's kind of sad too, because I think one of the more underrated things in Generations is Picard realizing he lost his family in this fire, you know, and he doesn't have any heirs, you know, at this time, and the emotional impact that have. I want to see, obviously, Guinan come back into it. And yes, Kyle, touch on the history what they have. And you know what'd been kind of fun? The learning process that Q has gone through, learning about humanity through Picard learning more about, you know, everything else that Q has thrown at him. Maybe it'd be really cool that if both Q and Guinan came to peace and they found a way to mend things and maybe have their races, that would be a really cool story arc there. But there's one other there that's just hanging out there. Wesley needs to come back from traveling, doing his traveling stuff with the Traveler, and I would love to maybe have the actor back that played the version of the Traveler, the first one, if he came back, and then the guy that was the Native American actor. I've seen that guy in a lot of stuff. That would have been kind of cool. Those are the things I see, and I would love it to see if we just get the one Q arc with Guinan. If it wasn't that, I would have liked to have how is this young ensign that Picard has been mentoring out there doing this traveling stuff? What does Q think of that? That could be like the other story that had been there to fill it out. Kyle, you're dying to say something. Go ahead.
Because I was thinking this while even before you said it, because I know how I would set this up. Q shows up on the Enterprise as the Enterprise is investigating something, an anomaly, a portal, something. Starts giving Picard a hard time.
Yes.
Q shows up to give Picard a hard time, and Wesley shows up, and Q just has like this utter shock on his face because now here's this whole new element Q has no idea what to do with.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody really knows what to do with at this point.
I felt Wesley's character was just kind of forgotten about, and then they kind of shoehorned him in for Picard a little bit and stuff. I felt there was just something hanging there that would have been nice and stuff.
But Kevin, when he comes back in season 8, he's the buff Wesley from Hyde and Q.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
The last thing I thought of that we will see in season 8 between Generations of First Contact, we will never see Troy piloting the ship again. Because the first time that she did, it crashed.
Okay. No, she saved everyone, including Spot.
Wasn't she driving the Enterprise E when she rammed it into the
when she was ordered to? Yes,
twice.
She has done her job valiantly.
I just thought about this. If Wesley does show up as a Traveler, he's going to have his own new Traveler that he's training, and it looks awful lot like Sheldon Cooper.
There you go. Well, guys, before we wrap things up, we got one more thing. We got to talk about the MVP. Good discussion here, guys. This is Union Federation episode 236, and we're discussing Star Trek Q episodes, specifically this one here, the final episode of the TNG series, All Good Things, which premiered in 1994. But our last mission report here is the Star Trek MVP, or as Amy likes to point out, maybe the least valuable player. So I want to start with you guys as I showcase some of the cast members in this. And Gary, I'm going to start with you. Who is your episode MVP?
For me, hands down, Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard. Going from confused to desperate to commanding to that final scene that we've discussed where he's someone who knows that he's exactly where he should be in life. The gamut. And just this is, wow. I mean, if you ever want to meet somebody who says, oh, I've never seen Patrick Stewart in anything, this is the episode you should, because I think that his range here, especially like old, it's like he's frustrated. He knows he's losing the grip, but he's desperately trying to remember. And then he's desperately trying not to be shunted aside. He's excited when his plans are coming together. I mean, every range. I mean, you can 20 different characteristics that he plays in this, and it's just he's just awesome in this episode.
Joel in the chat says someone was dressed as a poker tail from the episode at Star Trek Chicago.
Okay.
That must have been really cool. Okay, look that up. I just want to echo everything that you just said, Gary, because Picard is my pick as well. I think this is some of Patrick Stewart's finest acting, if not the best. He was fantastic in this episode. You could throw out Inner Light, of course, and all the other good ones that he really shines in, but this one was my favorite as well. Amy, I'm going to go to you. Who is your MVP? For between me and Gary, it's Patrick Stewart. What about you?
So mentioned it at the top of this episode, but I've got to go Data season 1, Encounter at Farpoint Data. Like the lines that he was saying, and Data, no matter what time, you are a genius, you know? So it goes to Data.
That's a good one. I was considering that one as well. That's a really good one. All right, Kyle, what say you? What is your All Good Things cast MVP?
Well, I completely agree with you and Gary. Patrick Stewart is the MVP of this episode by another stratosphere, honestly, with the performance he puts in. So I want to make my MVP, though, give somebody attention, because I think this character was highly important to the emotional side of this episode, and it's Gates McFadden as Beverly Crusher. I think she was so key to the emotional side in this episode with Picard, where you have Patrick Stewart just acting on a completely other level, yet there she is just bouncing off him like they've been bouncing off of each other for 7 seasons and not missing a step, and really bringing some emotional sides to Picard in this that we don't see that often. And I thought she was phenomenal in this episode.
And can I follow that? Kyle was saying, because we haven't mentioned it yet, future Beverly was a really good captain. I mean, she was like, okay, I'm giving you 6 hours, then we're getting out of here. You know, and then standing up to the ambassador and kind of putting him in his place, and the whole don't contradict me in front of my crew, all that. She was it wasn't just there, you know, oh, isn't that cute that Beverly's a cat? No, she was a good commander.
Amy, I want to give a shout out to Troy. Actually, I thought she had some good moments in this as well, whether from the beginning episode where her and Worf are flirting with each other, but then also when she's the confiding in him when they're in the past version, you know. And also too, I gotta tell you, she looks hot as a cheerleader outfit.
Yeah,
she got going on.
I got to give her credit for going back to wearing that outfit.
Oh my god, I was just like, yes.
I would have loved to seen Marina Sirtis's reaction to seeing her having to wear that outfit again, because that was not her favorite outfit.
Has she ever? So do you think she's ever kept that one? I was just kind of curious about that.
I don't think they kept him.
I
Not
don't
the
think they were.
chance.
Good stuff
Yeah.
there. All right, guys, those were our MVPs of the episode. This is, of course, a Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN, discussing Star Trek Q fan collective episodes. I want to get you guys' final thoughts. Gary, let's start with you.
Wow, boy. I mean, I thought I appreciated this episode before, but just talking about it for like the last little while just makes me, want to go back and rewatch it now. I mean, it really is one of the best, series finale ever. This is how you do a series finale with excitement and heart, and kind of giving the fans what they want while being true to the characters, with what I think is maybe the best final scene in a Trek series, or even in any series. If I were to list like my 10 best last scenes, this would probably be number one. The culmination of the Q Picard relationship. I mean, this is why it's 9 point something on IMDb.
9.1.
There you go.
And Gary, how can we reach out to you if we want to find you?
Well, you can find me on X at Gary _retro, Facebook, Gary Akers, AKERS. You can also find me on the Fandom Podcast Network on Thursdays on Type 40, hosted by Dan Hadley, talking Doctor Who, and on the Spacebook on Saturdays, talking everything else.
Awesome. Well done. Amy, give me your final thoughts on All Good Things.
Yeah, very simple, Gary. I agree with you. This is hands down one of the best season finales. Absolutely love it. All the feels. I love the time before, after, present. Like, that's just delicious. I love the paradox. I love exploring the brain, exploring the nebula, the Devron system. Get me there. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
It's all deliciousness to wrap your head around. And Q makes a huge impact because of his impact in Encounter at Farpoint. So this Q bookend that we get with TNG, again, just delicious.
Well said. And Amy, how can we get a hold of you?
Well, my time on the view screen is done. Our Sunday talk show is done, but you can still hear me on our podcast, All Good Things, because that's how amazing this episode is. Went and did a whole podcast, but it's all about all Star Trek.
It's all on the BQN.
BQN podcast, Instagram. We are on Discord server. We're on Facebook group. I'm in our Facebook group here, the Union Federation. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Kyle, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
An episode that wrapped up a show that defined a generation, and it was I'm not going to say greater than any episode, but it's right there on par with the best episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation ever made. It's one of the best finales ever made. It's still emotional in a different way now, and that's a grand thing, and it's one of the greatest performances that Patrick Stewart has ever done as Jean-Luc Picard, and that's saying quite a bit when you think about it. Is it the best of the Q episodes? No, I'm not going to say that, but it is a good episode, and more importantly, it's one of the best Trek episodes ever made, period. So take that as you will. As far as finding me, of course, you can find me all over the Fandom Podcast Network and all of our great pages on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Kyle Wagner. You can find me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at AKyleW, and you can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. And after playing the game of wild podcast mics throughout the episode, I've decided, Kevin, you lose. It's time for you to clean the P corner. It's something you should have done a long time ago.
Ooh.
Damn it. Okay. See if I can get Malloy to do it instead. So, first of all, before I give you my final thoughts, I want to give you a little tease here. Guess what, guys? We're going to Voyager next. And the next episode is Death Wish. Came out in 1996. That'll be episode 237 next Monday night. If you're watching this, thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, to Joel for checking in, for the others that were watching as well. If you're listening to this, please join our live podcast on these Q episodes Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you check it out. Have a lot of fun. And you can also join the chat and such. So make sure you do that. Again, we are on the Fandom Podcast Network and, of course, the BQN. And you can also find us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, X. My name is Kevin. You can find me on all of those as well at Spartan_Phoenix on all the socials, including Blue Sky. So make sure you do that. And also give us a shout out at the T Public store there. Just search Fandom Podcast Network and get your own Union Federation shirt, as well as other apparel throughout our network shows. Kyle, what you got?
I have an Orvillian type question for you, Captain. If the next episode is Death Wish, is Charles Bronson in it?
Oh, yeah, he's going to be in it about 7 times. Amy's like, what?
He's in the deleted scenes.
Real quick, I just want to say this is one of the best season finales of all time. It was very satisfying. And but I got to tell you, after Picard season 3, it was really nice to see them back. It was wonderful, and they did a great job incorporating that. But this one is one of those episodes that gives me warm fuzzies, and it felt I would have paid money to see it in the movie theater as well.
Oh yeah,
it was so theatrical the way that it was done, and the performances were all wonderful, and everyone outdid their jobs and did a wonderful job. So
And
anyway,
there
guys,
needs to be a Fathom event. They should do that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, they did it for like some of the 2-part episodes when we were discussing that. I remember going to see Best of Both Worlds on the big screen. Yeah. I would, come on, Fathom, get on that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, that is it for this portion of the Q episodes. We're moving on from TNG and we're heading into Voyager for their 3-episode arc there. So that's going to be interesting. Join us again next week. Thank you, of course, to my good buddy Kyle, co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. Amy, thank you very much. Please head over to the BQN and see what they're doing over there. Doing a lot of good stuff for Trek fandom there. And Gary, as always, thank you for being with us since day one on this limited podcast.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure.
So we'll see you next week. Everyone, as we always like to say, live long and prosper. And without a doubt, this is the weirdest ship in the fleet. We will see you guys next time. See you guys. Bye.